DFS, welcome into Super Wildcard Weekend Edition of one of the most accurate DFS shows in the industry. This is, of course, the Adjusted Line Play Report presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite. I am your host, Todd Hoffman. You can find myself over on Twitter at Todzilla1337. And you can find Zilla Fantasy Elite over on Twitter at Zilla Fantasy. Today's show, as always, is powered by Reign Total Body Fuel. Looking to make it rain some cash in DFS? Tune in to the Adjusted Line Play Report presented by Zilla Fantasy Elite and follow host Todd Hoffman while he delivers the most accurate DFS advice in the industry and make it rain. All right, today's flavor, folks, as one of my favorite by Reign, Inferno. So we're gonna make it hot. It's the Red Dragon flavor. It's gonna be delicious. Let's open it up here and get going. Oh yeah, that's good stuff. There we go, Red Dragon, Inferno. It's a thermogenic. Gonna make it real hot in here. All right, with that under our belt, we're going to have one last show. I very much appreciate anybody who's followed along with me all season. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button, hit the follow button over on Twitter at Todzilla1337 or Zilla Fantasy over on Twitter. Give those a follow and let's go win some money together. For those of you who have been with me the whole season, very much appreciate it. Let's go win some more money this week in the Super Wildcard Weekend from the NFL, starting actually later today. This is Saturday. We're going to get this out to you guys. And we're going to go from number one game on the slate to the sixth game on the slate. Just a 6-game slate here. Getting into the first one here, we have the Giants going into Minnesota. Repeat of Week 16 here. Minnesota 3-point home favorites. This is the number one game on the slate at 48.5 points. Vegas game total. Minnesota 25.75 team implied total. The Giants at 22.75 team implied total. Getting into the Giants side, they're number 24 in the offensive pass protection. Luckily for them, Minnesota 26 in the defensive pass rush. They shouldn't be getting after the Giants particularly often. Despite the Giants line there being pretty poor, Minnesota shouldn't be able to get after Daniel Jones as well as some others may have in the past here against the Giants. So expect them to have a little bit more time than they're used to. I think this is going to be good for Darius Slayton. Last time they met, we saw Hodgins actually have a big game and Richie James have a solid game. I think this is more in line for Darius Slayton this week. I think, they get a little bit extra time. Slayton's that good outside receiver. I think he's going to be one of the lowest rostered people from the Giants. It sounds like Daniel Jones is going to be super popular in DFS just in general. If you want to get a little bit different on who he's being stacked with, I think Slayton is the one that's going to come in the lowest rostered, so keep that in mind. Getting into the run blocking, it's not as good for the Giants. They're 24th there as well. Minnesota's 16th at stopping the run, so they're middle of the pack. I don't expect Barkley to have a ton of running lanes or anything like that with this offensive line versus this defensive line. Barkley's certainly capable of putting up some big numbers and some explosive plays there. Just based off of what the Giants are doing, 9th in the run DVOA, Minnesota 25th. I wouldn't be surprised to see if Barkley does have 2 or 3 bigger gains in this game, 30 to 40 yard runs. Wouldn't surprise me just based off of the matchups here. Outside of that, getting into the Minnesota offensive side, they're 14th in the pass protection. The Giants 22nd, so not a huge favor for Minnesota, but it is a favor for their offensive line there. They should have some time to throw the ball. That's going to be good for Justin Jefferson. We did see, the last time these two met a few weeks ago, TJ Hawkinson blew up for 110 yards and two touchdowns. So I think that is in play as well. Those are my two favorite targets. If they're going to have a little bit of additional time, we've seen Osborne and Thielen there kind of play backup roles pretty much all season now. To expect more of that to continue against this Giants team. If they're going to have a little bit of time to throw, Justin Jefferson and Hockenson should be pretty good plays. Getting into the offensive run blocking side, Minnesota 25, which is not very good, but the Giants 30th in stopping the run. They're 29th in the run DVOA, while Minnesota's 20th. This does bode well for Dalvin Cook having some lanes to run. He's been pretty much middle of the road, like just meh all season as far as, getting any big spike weeks or anything like that. But against this Giants defense, if Minnesota's moving the ball pretty well, through the air, I think this is suggesting that they'll be fairly effective on the ground as well. Wouldn't be surprised to see Dalvin Cook have a pretty good game in this matchup. It's just one of those things where it looks like Minnesota is going to be able to, methodically move the ball down the field, put up some points. The Giants maybe have a little bit of more time to pass the ball, which is why I think, getting a run back of Darius Slayton, who's got that explosive playmaking ability. And the Giants are 7th in the pass DVOA category, and Minnesota 19th in defensive pass DVOA, which means, the Giants might have some more explosive plays there actually in the pass game. And really that's going to favor Slayton more than any of those other guys on that squad. So keep that in mind. I think that will be a great matchup, and if you want to get some of these more expensive things, more expensive guys in your lineup, the studs like McCaffrey and all that, he could be one of your excellent pieces to get in there that are going to be cheap and pretty low rostered on a 6-game slate. Number 2 game on the slate is the Los Angeles Chargers heading into Jacksonville, and we actually have the Chargers as 2-point road favorites. 47.5 Vegas game total, second best on the slate. Chargers at 24.75 team implied total. Jacksonville at 22.75 team implied total. On the offensive side for the Chargers, number 9 in offensive pass protection. Jacksonville 29th at getting after the quarterback. We should see lots and lots and lots of time for Herbert to pass the ball. We do have Mike Williams out in this particular game. There's been some back and forth on Twitter about how the team was managed in the meaningless Week 8 game or Week 18 game, where Mike Williams kind of got this injury. He should have sat out. He would have been available for this playoff game. Well, he's not. I think this is going to be a big boon for Keenan Allen. He should see upwards of 12 to 15 targets, I believe, in this game. I see the Chargers passing all over Jacksonville. It's also going to be good for the tight end Everett, and Eckler, I think, is going to be a big beneficiary there too. I think he actually increased his targets when Mike Williams was out were almost like 4 more per game. So if I was going to stack this game with Herbert, it'd be Herbert with Eckler and Keenan Allen. I don't think I'd want the ancillary pieces there as far as Palmer or Everett's concerned. Everett, tight end, can certainly have a big game in this spot if they got a lot of time to throw it. But I would be looking to stack Herbert with Eckler and Allen, and just kind of realize that with their 22 pass DVOA, they've been keeping the ball short in this particular year for whatever reason with Herbert's arm. They just have a low ADOT this year, and I think that continues with Allen and Eckler on the pass game. To go along with this, the Chargers are 26th in run blocking. The Jacksonville Jaguars are 5th in stopping the run. I don't expect the Chargers to be very effective running the ball, which is why I think Eckler is going to have quite a few more targets in this particular matchup. I think Herbert getting 45 plus pass attempts in this game is pretty much a lock. So if you're setting, if you're doing any of those prop bets, I think he's pretty much a lock for a ton of pass attempts in this. And I think Jacksonville can also keep pace with the Chargers to push them to continue throwing. Getting into the Jacksonville side, they're actually number 3 in offensive pass protection. Chargers number 11. They're getting better and better now that Bosa's back here. But Jacksonville should, be able to handle their own on the offensive line there, which will give them a little bit extra time to pass the ball. That's going to be pretty much good for any of the pass catchers: Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and Evan Ingram. I do like Evan Ingram in this particular matchup as far as, getting a tight end that's a little bit different from some of these studs like Hockenson and Kittle that will be rolling out there, Mark Andrews, guys like that. I think this is a good way to pivot off of some of those guys. Getting into the run blocking, Jacksonville 29th, which is pretty poor, but the Chargers also 29th in stopping the run. So Jacksonville should be able to run the ball a little bit more effectively than they're used to. Just kind of looking at these matchups here, I think Jacksonville should be similar to Minnesota in the effect that they're probably going to be pretty methodical going down the field, putting up, longer drives, sustained drives, and putting up points on the board. Wouldn't be surprised to see that with the Chargers, run blocking being such a big mismatch there. The Chargers going to have to pass a ton. That's why I think this game could be, one of those that goes back and forth. Wouldn't be surprised to see it get a little bit, paced up there. We see Chargers, top 5 in a lot of those categories. Jacksonville, if they're leading, they kind of they play a little bit slower, but if they're trailing, they're pretty fast compared to the rest of the league. And really just offensive neutral situation, they're top 10. So I could see this one, shooting out and being one of those popular ones where you needed, several players from this to win your division. Win your tournament. As far as the game's concerned, though, I'm going to go ahead and say this is an upset alert. I think Jacksonville can handle their business against this Chargers team. Vegas obviously has it close here as a 2-point line for the road team, but I think Jacksonville can handle business. I think they squeak out a victory in this game against the Chargers, especially with Mike Williams out there and them having to pretty much focus and funnel all of their offense through Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler. I think they're going to struggle a little bit more on offense than Jacksonville will against their defense, and that's going to be how that game goes. Getting into the third game on the slate, it's actually the Monday night game, which is Tampa Bay and Dallas. Scroll past all these ones here. Dallas going into Tampa Bay, 45.5 Vegas game total. We have Dallas actually as 2.5-point road favorites here, so 2 road teams favored over that number 4 seed. Dallas 24 team implied total, Tampa Bay 21.5 team implied total for a 2.5-point favorite in Dallas's road team favored there. On the Dallas offensive side, they're number 4 in offensive pass protection, Tampa Bay number 8 in the defensive pass rush. That's fairly close, slight favor for Dallas's offensive line there, but it basically means it's going to be a stalemate. In those types of situations, it ends up being like those who are pretty good at football will persevere. I think Dak's solid enough, and I think this is going to favor more of his favorite targets, which is going to be CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz. In the pass game, I think those are the 2 that you're going to want to target in this particular matchup. And then getting into the run blocking, we actually see Dallas slightly below average there at number 17, Tampa Bay at number 8 there in stopping the run. I don't think Dallas is going to be able to, move the ball running as well as people would think in this particular matchup. Along with that pass protection, I think Tampa Bay's defense here is setting up pretty well to limit Dallas's opportunities on offense. I don't think they're going to be able to sustain a ton of drives. And it's going to be very heavily favored or heavily leaning towards that Lamb and Schultz kind of getting an increase in targets as that run game struggles. Wouldn't be surprised to see Pollard, get upwards of 5 or 6 targets as well, especially if Tampa Bay is getting after the quarterback there. I would expect him to get involved quite a bit and kind of have some of those targets lean Schultz's way as well. Dallas does play pretty fast here, top 7 pretty much in all the categories. Tampa Bay also plays really fast, top 6 in most of those categories unless they're trailing. But yeah, very interesting there. It could be one of those pace-up games. I just don't see Dallas being super effective, particularly on the ground. So I think they struggle there, and they're going to have to pass the ball, which is going to lead to some Tampa Bay opportunities for some turnovers, sacks, things like that. Keep that in mind. I think Tampa Bay is a pretty solid defensive option in this slate this week. Getting into the Tampa Bay offensive side, they're number 1 in offensive pass protection, which is pretty good. Dallas number 2 in the defensive pass rush, so they do get after the quarterback. I expect this to be no different. Really, the big part of why Tampa Bay is number 1 is just Tom Brady gets the ball out quick. There's not a ton of opportunities to sack him. Certainly have some talent there in Godwin, Julio Jones, Gage, Evans, people that can get open, Cade Otton. I don't necessarily think, Dallas, if they're going to be getting after Tom Brady and getting after him, I think, they got the weapons, Godwin and Cade Otton, and some of the run game there with Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette. I think they have options and some talent to get the ball out quickly to be effective, even if Dallas is getting after them. Wouldn't be surprised to see them, really low ADOT, but getting the ball out quick and getting it to those, 4 guys. And then when the opportunity arises, Gage and Julio Jones been underneath pretty much, doing pretty good there when given the opportunities. And, Mike Evans had the blow-up week there in week 18, but I don't see him being particularly effective in this matchup given what we're likely to see as far as pressure. Getting into the run game for Tampa Bay, they're 28th, Dallas number 10 at stopping the run. Dallas number 1 in the run DVOA category, Tampa Bay 19th. I don't expect Tampa Bay to run the ball very well. Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette going to be struggling in that department. In that sense, if you're not playing on a PPR site, which is DraftKings, if you're playing something on like FanDuel, I'm definitely avoiding the Tampa Bay running backs, and I'd be leaning more into the guys that are going to get the targets there in the pass game. It could be them, but those don't count as much, in that half PPR setting for FanDuel. So kind of an interesting matchup, I think. Even though these two play pace up, I do like Tampa Bay's, defensive opportunities to get quite a few sacks, turnovers, things like that as Dallas struggles to move the ball. I think there's going to be a lot of plays in this particular matchup, and most of them passing. And trying to get the ball out quick. So, either of these two defenses, like I said, it could be back and forth. I just don't see it turning into a shootout just with these matchups. I think, the best matchup in the particular whole game is Dallas number 4 offensive pass protection versus Tampa Bay number 8, and that's really a wash. Otherwise, the Tampa Bay pass protection on offense is, 1 versus 2, and then the run blocking units are pretty poor. So I'd expect these teams to struggle to move the ball. Wouldn't be surprised to see plenty of sacks, turnovers. So looking at these two squads as far as your defenses are concerned, I think that's where you're going to want to go in tournaments. I think these two will be solid in that sense. Getting into the number 4 game on the slate, Miami and Buffalo. Miami heading into Buffalo as 13.5-point underdogs. Don't have Tua or Teddy Bridgewater available. They're starting Skylar Thompson there in Miami, which is part of the problem. 43.5 Vegas game total. We have Buffalo at 28.5 team implied total, which I believe is number 1 on the slate, despite being the 4th best game. And then Miami at a paltry 15 points. Not expected to score a lot there. Fortunately for them and Skylar Thompson, they're number 11 in pass protection, while Buffalo's number 21 in getting after the quarterback. They should have some time to throw the ball. This is going to be good for both Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think they're going to be the biggest beneficiaries of this particular matchup. And having a little bit of extra time to see the ball or for them to get open for Skylar to throw them. The run blocking, Miami top 10 there at number 8, but Buffalo number 3 at stopping the run. I don't expect Miami to be super effective running the ball, but it's going to be one of those where if you have an elite talent, they can overcome. I don't necessarily think Miami has that there. So I'd expect them to be passing the ball a little bit more effectively than running the ball in this matchup. As far as DFS is concerned, I don't know if I'd be taking a stab on Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle at all in this game, but I think they are the biggest beneficiaries of this particular matchup. I think the pass game is, your best bet from any Miami player. On Buffalo side, they are number 7 in the offensive pass protection, Miami 20th. I'd expect Buffalo to have plenty of time to get the ball out. Generally, this has favored Gabe Davis type games. And I don't think this will be particularly different in that sense. I think Steph Diggs, Gabe Davis, Knox even, if they're going to have quite a bit of time, you could see him score. But I think that's going to be the route that Buffalo takes. Josh Allen, his pass catchers, and that's going to be the route that they go. The run blocking, Miami's actually top 4 there at number 4. Buffalo 13th in the run blocking. So I think Singletary and Cook, they're splitting work. It's not a great matchup for them. I wouldn't expect either of them to necessarily explode in this particular matchup. You could see a scenario where maybe Buffalo's up 30 or something like that on Miami into the third quarter, and they lean on those guys to finish it out. But really, if Buffalo's getting to 30, it's going to be through the air, I believe. And, the 3 pass catchers that I mentioned before are going to be the main beneficiaries of that. But Davis and Diggs and Knox are going to be the ones that you want. They got some ancillary pieces that they could, score some points with, but that'd be the route I go for any Buffalo players. Getting into the 5th best game on the slate. Oh, excuse me. We had, I don't know why that one says 2, but we have Seattle and San Francisco as the 5th best on the slate. This number 2 not accurate. Seattle going into San Francisco. San Francisco 9.5-point home favorites, a 42 Vegas game total. San Francisco 25.75 team implied total. Seattle just 16.25. Getting into the Seattle offensive side, they're number 26 in the pass protection. San Francisco 16th at getting after the quarterback. Pretty solid favor there for San Francisco's defense. I think Seattle's not going to have a ton of time to throw the ball. They'll have to get it out a little bit quicker. That could be a little bit more, tight end targets, running back targets, things like that. I'd expect that to be the case. For their pass protection, DK Metcalf and Lockett, I don't expect to have super great games based off of this particular matchup. And just looking into the DVOA, San Francisco's number 2 in the pass DVOA, Seattle 23rd. So San Francisco doesn't really give up explosive plays. Seattle's not really an explosive play team. I just don't think the pass game is going to be very effective there for Seattle. And unfortunately for Seattle's playoff chances, that is their best matchup this week on offense. Their run blocking unit is number 30, San Francisco number 2. Do not expect Ken Walker to be able to have a good game against San Francisco. He's certainly talented, but this is suggesting it's going to be overwhelming. He's going to be getting a hit in the backfield, not getting a ton of yards. This is going to be a kind of a rainy game too, so that just kind of leads for Seattle to have a pretty poor game. I wouldn't be surprised to see them as one of the bottom 2 scoring teams, despite Geno Smith having that excellent season this year. I just think they kind of running into a defensive stalwart here in a rainy game matchup, and their run game should be overpowered by that San Francisco defense. So they're kind of in a void for me in DFS. As far as San Francisco is concerned, they're number 10 in the offensive pass protection, which is pretty good, but Seattle also number 10 in getting after the quarterback. Typically when that's the case, even up, pretty much the guys who are studs are the ones who are going to shine in those particular matchups. That's pretty much everybody San Francisco has. Ayuk's pretty good. Debo's very good. Kittle's very good. Any of those 3 should be pretty solid in the pass game. But with the rainy weather, I wouldn't expect them to be, launching any deep passes or anything like that. So Ayuk may be a little bit more of an avoid as far as the pass game is concerned, and leaning more into the Kittle and Debo matchups. But really, I think with Seattle struggling on offense, it's going to be San Francisco's game here. They're going to be running out the clock. That's what they like to do anyway. And they're number 4 in the offensive run blocking category, while Seattle's 25th. San Francisco also pretty explosive. They're number 2 in run DVOA, Seattle 20th. I kind of expect San Francisco to run all over Seattle here. I think they're going to be, sustaining their drives. It's going to be a little bit rainy. I think that's how they're going to operate in this particular game. Christian McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell, I think, have some pretty solid weeks here. Just as far as, getting different in a tournament, I think Elijah Mitchell is a very good play here. I would not be surprised in this matchup to see him crest 80 or 90 yards and at least one touchdown. Especially if San Francisco gets up big, I think they're going to lean on him a little bit more than McCaffrey just to save him for the later playoff run. So like I said, Elijah Mitchell, if you're looking for some salary savings, he would be the guy that I'm gobbling up to get up to those more stud players and the better matchups. But that's going to do it for that fifth game on the slate. Worst one on the slate, Baltimore in Cincinnati. We have Cincinnati as 8.5-point home favorites at a 40.5 Vegas game total overall. Cincinnati 24.5 team implied total. Baltimore just 16, pretty poor there. Getting into the offensive pass protection, Baltimore 22, Cincinnati 28 at getting after the quarterback. Baltimore actually number 2 in pass DVOA, while Cincinnati's 14. That kind of suggests that Baltimore's a little bit more explosive there. Wouldn't expect them to struggle like mightily as far as pass protection's concerned. It's just the quarterback is the main concern there. Who they're going to be throwing it to is Isaiah Likely, Mark Andrews, and pretty much no one else. Robinson there as a wide receiver, but I don't expect them to be super prolific there. Obviously, Vegas doesn't think that either. Getting into the run blocking, it's even worse. 21st for Baltimore, Cincinnati 15 at stopping the run. I don't think Baltimore is going to be super effective running the ball. I think how they're going to be able to move the ball a little bit more effectively is, having that time in the pass game. I do think that's more of a Andrews and Likely type of game. We may see Robinson have a solid, 7 or 8 catches for 90 yards in this. If Baltimore does score a touchdown, maybe it's him, but I think it's going to lean more heavily on the tight ends, as we've seen recently. I just don't expect Baltimore to move the ball very effectively, and with the backup quarterback there, I see it being pretty ugly on Baltimore's end. Getting into the Cincinnati side, though, they may struggle to move the ball as well. They're 16th in offensive pass protection. Baltimore number 6 at getting after the quarterback. The DVOA is there. Cincinnati number 4, Baltimore number 7. That's kind of even there. We have seen Cincinnati overcome a lot of these pass protection matchups. We saw Cincinnati sit in between like the 20 to 26 range most of the year, but still be pretty effective in their pass game. This probably won't be too much different, where even despite the poor matchup, they are still able to produce pretty well in offense. I just don't know if Baltimore's not moving the ball. I don't see Cincinnati, racking up 40 or 50 points in this game based on this matchup. I think it is going to be lower scoring. And getting into the run blocking, it's Cincinnati 16 again in the run blocking unit, Baltimore number 13, and then dead even there for both teams on the run DVOAs at 6. Again, I don't think Cincinnati is going to be particularly great running the ball. It is the better of the two matchups. I do like, if you have a league that has kickers and you're in a playoff league, I got invited into the Scott Fish Bowl Playoff League 8. I do have Evan McPherson in there as my kicker. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get 3 or 4 opportunities to kick field goals in this game. Especially if Cincinnati is struggling to move the ball, they may be more in the 35 to 55 yard range than in the 20 to 35 yard range. I do like him as far as your best bet option. Defenses, you certainly could play them, especially if you think Cincinnati is going to be up a little bit and Baltimore passing a little bit more, but doesn't look like Cincinnati will even be able to get after the quarterback. This game's pretty much hands off for me. I think Evan McPherson's going to be the one that has the biggest fantasy impact in this particular matchup. But we've seen crazier things. We've seen Joe Burrow overcome some of these poor matchups all season. So if Cincinnati moves the ball pretty well in the air, I wouldn't be shocked. I just wouldn't expect it in this particular game. Anyway, that's going to do it for this playoff edition, the Super Wildcard Weekend. We got all the Week 18 data from Football Outsiders in here. So these are the end-all, be-all for the rest of the season. I think this will be the last episode that we have putting matchups together. So Super Wildcard Weekend, 6-game slate. You kind of know how to attack it now based off of the offensive and defensive line play. I appreciate everyone for watching this season. I look forward to another great season in 2023 when that season in the NFL gets kicked off. Stay tuned for all the DFS goodness there. And, check in here periodically throughout the season to see if we got any Dynasty content out there. I'd like to do that as well. Again, thanks for watching. Let's go win some money in this Super Wildcard Weekend together, folks. I appreciate it. Subscribe, go to Twitter and follow, and appreciate all of the views throughout this whole season. Wishing you the best. Bye-bye.